too fast.
I'm going.
I'm taking three.
Going for the St. Louis now.
Oh
Son of a bitch.
no! You get your two?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thotgor here, of course. And today I thought we would take a look at some captain abilities. Sir God had left a message on one of the videos just asking, curious as to what abilities here were on the captain, which got me thinking maybe we should take a look at some captain abilities here. And then specifically we'll take a look at cruiser captains, maybe touch on some battleships, because I don't want this to run too long. I want to squeeze in a replay here as well. Anyway, on the old donkey, you can see my captain is still retraining. I did not pay the 500 gold to retrain him. I think that is a waste of gold. I'll just play it out, right? I'm almost there. Very close. Anyway, captain abilities. So, tier 1, I did get the basic firing training. I wanted this because I wanted my secondary batteries to reload a little faster, but more importantly, I used this to increase the average damage per second of my AA. Because on my Russian cruisers, just like my Japanese cruisers actually, I'm pretty focused on getting Demolition Expert down here at tier 4, and that means I won't get manual fire control for AA. So I boost this, or I get this to boost the AA. Give me that little extra damage per second here on the AA. Moving into tier 2, I usually do always get the Expert Marksman. I want the increased turret traverse. This is incredibly important, I find, for my cruisers because I want the turrets to turn as fast as possible to keep up with me in my turns and crazy maneuvers, right? Something else that I do like for my cruisers is last stand, depending on what type of cruiser. Maybe a lower tier cruiser that tends to have its engines or steering knocked out quite often. I might find this useful. Like, for example, on my Nuremberg captain, for example, he might have this. Something else too, of course, is fire prevention is always useful, but it would be like my third pick after Expert Marksman and Last Stand. I have heard some great things about Incoming Fire Alert. I've never actually used it myself. Not too concerned about it until, I actually get down to the 5th level. So moving into level 3 here on a cruiser captain, because this is tier 9 and I knew that this captain specifically will be on the Moskva, right? This is the Moskva captain. I just don't have it yet. I did want Superintendent. There was a real no question here about getting this because you can see it's going to give me one extra defensive fire, radar, and heal. So 3 things, very, very important. So yeah, definitely wanted this. I did consider getting the High Alert because it will reduce further the damage control party consumable, as you can see there, obviously. And this would just be a way to limit the damage I'm taking, specifically fires and whatnot, to make sure I can put those out as quick as possible, or even torpedoes. But then I got to thinking, especially with the Donskoi, it's probably not going to be such an issue on the Moskva, but on this ship specifically, when you take a massive amount of damage, it generally kills you outright, so yeah, there's that. But still, even at tier 9, I find this incredibly useful once the captain's trained up. I'm going to get the extra heal, radar, and defensive fire, which is great. Moving on to tier 4, like I had mentioned, Demolition Expert. This is what I'm all about with my Russian cruisers, my Japanese cruisers as well. I want Demolition Expert. I don't go for advanced firing training whatsoever because I don't care about the AA on the cruisers, to be totally honest with you. Usually most of the cruisers I'm not really concerned. I think the only cruisers that I have specifically outfitted for AA is the Kutsov and the New Orleans. All of my other cruisers are fitted out to emphasize their guns. Because it's the guns that end up doing the most damage. I'm trying to maximize the damage on those guns. Not concerned with planes. And I know that they're an issue, but you can't guarantee an aircraft carrier in every battle. So suddenly you get into a battle with no aircraft carrier, and all of those fancy AA armament upgrades you have are useless. So it just doesn't make sense to me. Plus, I would use this maybe more on an American cruiser to buff up its AA. We'll talk about German cruisers momentarily because I know that's probably what you're all thinking as well. Anyway, Demolition Expert at tier 4. At tier 5, for a cruiser, there are a number of different options. Last Chance might be something that interests you. Manual fire control, not really on a cruiser, but still, I guess. Preventative maintenance. This is interesting. It might be something more suited for another type of ship, but yeah, there's that option. Concealment Expert, and then we've got these last two. Jack of all trades is interesting as well for a cruiser, but for me specifically, it is going to be Concealment Expert is what I'm going to be taking for my tier 5 ability. I just see this as being the most useful, just to reduce that detectability, especially on some of these Russian cruisers where they have a high detectability. This could be really, really useful. Anyway, so those are the skills that I have in the Donskoi specifically, and I chose them. I'm happy with the change or with what I've done here, and there might be something different that you personally would rather, but this is what I've done, and the sort of reasoning behind why I chose those. Hindenburg. Let's take a look at my German captain. So you can see he doesn't have his 5th level ability as of yet. We're still working towards it. But there are some things that you're seeing here that are confusing you, I'm sure. So, I did go with the basics of survivability. I'm not too concerned about the AA on my Hindenburg. I know. The Hindenburg has amazing AA, Thotgor. You need to have all AA maxed out on your Hindenburg, blah, 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 blah. No. This is not the way that I want to play the ship, so I don't spec it out that way. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. If that's the way you want to have your Hindenburg spec'd out, good, fantastic, as long as you're happy with it. And I'm quite happy with what I have going on here on my Hindenburg. So, basics of survivability. Oh yeah. So I reduce just flat out 50% repair time and fire extinguishing and recovery from flooding. The idea here is that my German cruisers, because the HE isn't so great, I'm not going to try and max out the HE potential. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to max out the survivability of the ship, because the guns are really great, and the modules I purchased, emphasize the guns. But the captain ability, that I can emphasize survivability, I can stay alive longer, dish out more damage, and potentially make a greater impact on the outcome of the battle. So that's my reasoning behind this. Moving to tier 2, I have 2 abilities here. So Expert Marksman, obvious, I want the turret traverse, and Last Stand. Now, I thought about respecking the captain, actually, getting rid of Last Stand and then going for the tier 5 ability, because I could do that. And I'm still debating it, actually. This might be something that I change, but for now, and the reasoning why I took Last Stand was working up through the German line, right? Because keep in mind, this would have been the captain that I would have started off, at the old Hermelin there at tier 1 or somewhere around there. So that's why. And at the time, this was way back when they first released German cruisers, the German cruisers had a really high tendency to lose their engine and or steering, which was awful. And so this sort of went without saying, Last Stand. Now, as I'm talking, I'm thinking more and more that I probably am going to change this, and then obviously go for Concealment Expert, but we'll get there. Anyway, tier 3. Superintendent, once again, surprise, surprise, I want the extra heal, and I want the extra acoustic sonar. I know that I said I'd spec it out for survivability, and the high alert would make sense here, but I have enough flags, I think it's the high caliber flag, that reduces your reload of consumables, so I can run that flag and make up for this, and instead I can take my extra heal and my acoustic sonar. The fighter there, that's just icing on the cake, I suppose, but really it's the heal that I'm looking for. I need that extra heal. Now, level 4. This is going to be the controversial one. We've seen it on the channel. People have commented about it before, asking Thotgor, what is wrong with you? Maybe I was dropped in my head. I don't know. But I did take Survivability Expert on a cruiser. I know. An extra 400 hit points for each ship tier. So we're at tier 10 rather. So that's an extra, what is that, 44,000 hit points? Oh, I can't do math. Anyway, extra hit points. So this is important to me, and I take it over the manual fire control of AA. Like I say, I'm not looking to have bitchin' AA. I see it as being fairly useless at this point in time anyway. Aircraft carrier ability, don't need that. Advanced firing training, again, this would be great for AA, right? Not going to do it. And my demolition expert, there's no point. the German HE isn't great anyway, so why bother? So that left me with Survivability Expert, and I am very happy with my Survivability Expert, to be quite frank with you. I have it on my Hindenburg, it's on my Rune Captain, we can see him here, it's even on the old Hipper Captain here. It is a staple of my German cruisers. These are the only cruisers that I use Survivability Expert on, but it is a staple. I would, recommend you at least consider it. Tier 5, same thing, Concealment Expert. Gotta get it. That's what my cruiser's gonna have. And that, pretty much goes for all of my cruisers in port is Concealment Expert at Tier 5. If I were in a battleship, it's gonna be different. It's definitely gonna be manual fire, well, not definitely, but most likely the manual fire control for AA. But overall, that's how I spec out my cruisers. Like it or hate it or love it, it doesn't make any difference to me. I am happy with the way that I have these ships and captains spec'd out. Like I say, the only thing that maybe I should revisit here is getting rid of Last Stand on the Hindenburg and putting on Concealment Expert. Yeah, I'll probably end up doing it. Anyway, like I said, I just wanted to do a little brief overview and look at some of the commander abilities I do use on my cruisers. Battleships we might take a look at. I'm really not a battleship captain, but I do enjoy some of the faster battleships. But anyway, now we are actually going to move into a replay here that I have of the old Donskoi. So we'll go ahead and let that start up. Alright, so moving into the replay, we can see that we are on Northern Lights, and today I'm grouped up with Orvis and the Canadian. Now, Orvis is in his Utiloi, of course, and Canadian is in his Turpets. Canadian apparently didn't have a Tier 9. The Turpets seemed to work out well for us, as Tier 9 was the highest tier in this game, and there were only a few of them, so that is not too bad at all. Now, because we are, in fact, in a division, we are going to spawn over here on the west side of the map, and that means that A is most likely going to be our target. Most likely, where we're going to want to push and where we're going to want to go and secure. Given that the team, based on where the team spawned, hopefully they're going to go in there and take B. Anyway, being in the old Donskoi here, I have no desire to be spotted first. None whatsoever. This ship can get destroyed. I was in a battle the other day in the Donskoi, and someone mentioned me in chat, which is great. Thank you so much for doing so. And then what happened is people were like, what? Someone's recording? Oh my god, kill the recorder. And so suddenly I had everyone just trying to focus me down, and I ran away. Ran away with tails between my legs. I was dead, though, within 8 minutes, I think. I wasn't first blood, though, so that was nice. That was something. Anyway. You can see Orvis immediately is off. He's going into A. I mean, of course this makes sense. He's the destroyer, right? Obviously, going into A, going to take it. Now, you do need to keep in mind the Utiloi. I don't have one, but apparently it doesn't have the greatest detection, the greatest concealment range, so do need to take that into account. But Orvis is an excellent player, so, confidence in what he's got going on over there. We are going to form up with the Canadian for now. The reason for this, obviously, Canadian's in a battleship. Want to stay near. Canadian has a better range than I do, obviously, so hopefully he's going to be able to take out any enemy ships that may want to harass me along the way over here to A. Another nice thing on the Donskoi that I am starting to enjoy a whole lot are the guns. The guns are pretty damn decent. I'm getting a whole lot more used to just the different range, or just the different leading that I need to do now on these different guns than I had in the Chapiev. So I'm getting a whole lot more used to it. I'm getting some pretty decent results with them as well. What I am struggling with right now in the Donskoi actually is getting and doing a lot of damage, and I think that it just has to do with the fact that my commander is retraining, so I don't have Demolition Expert yet, and I think that's what's going on, because I'm not lighting as many fires as I would like to see. Anyway, we see a York off in the distance, so we'll immediately send some shots off into the York, and I am getting fairly close here, but I have a landmass coming up, right, that I'm going to be able to use this island, this mountain range here, as really, really good cover against all the enemy players who are over there to the north of the A point here. And in what I am going to also be able to do is, you can see, I pop my radar and start focusing down some of these enemy destroyers. Because of the poor maneuverability of the Donskoi and the poor redder shift time here, you do need to start your turn a whole lot sooner than you would think in order to continue to be behind the cover so you don't push beyond this mountain range and get killed by all those enemy ships who are waiting for you to go beyond that mountain range. You need to keep this in mind. You don't want to go beyond the cover. That would just serve no purpose. Anyway, Canadian gets the kill there on the enemy destroyer. Fantastic. We've got one enemy destroyer down. We know that there's a second enemy destroyer over here at A though, right? We know that because we've seen it. We still do have, a number of allies here around. Obviously we've got Canadian in the background. We do have an allied, I think it's an allied Bismarck moving up. No, it's a Tirpitz. But as well, that's all going to play into helping support us here as well. Now, on the minimap, we do see the enemy has taken the C cap zone. We, in the meantime, have managed to take B, which is fantastic. If we can just get a hold on A, we would have at least, if they don't take D, we'd have cap superiority at this time. So that would go a long way right now to just helping us out. Even though we haven't actually lost a ship yet, it's still really early. There is a whole lot of potential here for us to start losing ships fairly quickly, myself included, because this thing blows up at the drop of a hat, I tell you. But anyway, A seemed to be relatively clear now, right? Like some of those larger ships seem to have spread out and moved to the eastern side of the map. So I'm going to try and get in here and do something about capping this point. We have a Mogami and then a Thotgor, or Mogami and a Buki maybe off in the distance. Yeah, Mogami and a Buki. Mogami's almost dead. We can see the Mogami's on fire, not able to put it out, so I'm not going to waste my shots off on the Mogami. Instead, I'm going to start focusing down on this Ibuki here that we have. We do see torpedoes incoming as well. Based on the angle as to where those were probably fired from, I would still, at the time, still guess that, yeah, that's from a destroyer. I know that the Mogami and the Ibuki both have torpedo launchers, but it just didn't look like they were over there to be able to launch them. Plus, that's 2 sets of 3, as opposed to the 4 and 5 that the Mogami and Ibuki respectively would launch. So there we go. There's our there's our destroyer. So we knew, the player was here. Not too surprised. We're going to try and get this guy gone though. Even though the Ibuki's in the background, fairly low health, I'm still going to try and do something about that destroyer, or apparently shoot at the Ibuki. Who knows? Main thing is we're in the A cap zone and we're actually capping it right now. So again, this will go a long way to giving us cap superiority. On top of that, you can see that I have an allied ship who's making a cheeky move in C and is actually contesting C. Now, obviously, there's an enemy ship in C because we haven't actually started to cap C as of yet. Fire is raining in from all the allies, I suppose, onto this enemy Ibuki, and hopefully any time at all that player will be gone. You can see we just killed the enemy. Was it an enemy? No. Enemy destroyer killed one of my ships. Yes, got torpedoed. So that kind of sucks. But few more shots and we should be able to take out this player here. I have torpedoes coming in, so I'm going to have to do some sort of crafty maneuver here. It's not going to be enough, and I am going to eat at least one of those torpedoes. You can see the allied Bismarck, Colorado. I really wanted it to be a Bismarck. The allied Colorado took one as well. There we go. Enemy is gone. Fantastic. That was the enemy Ibuki that I managed to kill. I must have set a fire to the player, right? And the player burnt down. So fantastic. Don't need to worry about that player anymore. The enemy destroyer who was over here, it does look as though this player is retreating at this time, or at least moving out of our of the area, we'll say, because we don't see him. I'm still spotted. I have a pretty high detection range on this ship though, so really the enemy destroyer could be anywhere up here to the north. Now I do break away actually at this point in time from Orvis and Canadian. I didn't say anything, and maybe I should have, but I could tell right away. They're going to circle around the back, right, essentially is what I'm thinking. And if they circle around that way from west to east, then I can come around on the side we spawned on and also push west to east, and together the three of us could potentially clear out any enemies who might be in and around A, in and around B, and set ourselves up for a nice position at C. This was the plan that I had sort of in my head at the time. We do see some enemy ships off in the distance, Pensacola out there, so I really wanted to get the Pensacola. You can see I've got my armor piercing queued up. I still, pretty impressed with the armor piercing capability of the Donskoi here, so it's, there's no reason why you shouldn't decent firearm or piercing, even at range like this, depending on the target though. I mean, I'm firing at a Pensacola, so yeah, we know, little armor, it's probably going to be great. A Chapiev as well, very little armor, it would do fine at range. You know, battleships or any cruisers, maybe an American cruiser, German cruiser, Japanese cruiser, and any battleship, yeah, you definitely want to fire your high explosive when you are at range. Enemy Pensacola is almost gone. Let's see if I can manage to steal the kill once again. There we go. Kill 2. And I'm only at about 11,000 damage. But whatever. We still have, you know, a good position here on this map. The enemies have lost 4 ships to our 2, but we did lose a battleship as of so far, right? So that is going to make a bit of a difference here. We have the enemy North Carolina off on our port side, so we are going to fire full salvos into the enemy North Carolina, hoping to set some fires. And like I say, yeah, like it didn't light a whole lot of fire. It wasn't so great. It might have something to do with the demolition expert. Maybe as well my aiming isn't so great, and that's contributing to it. Very possible. Anyway, some enemies are pushing in and beyond C, so we are going to have to do something about these guys. We see an enemy destroyer over here, so we're going to start engaging this enemy destroyer. Hopefully, you know, help out our allied destroyer here, take this guy down and survive. Maybe we can even get our allied destroyer in there into the C cap and start capping it again. We have an enemy York there. We can see that our allied destroyer is taking some damage, but is still kicking around, and there goes our allied destroyer. Great. Anyway, enemy York. So we're going to start putting some shots into the enemy York. The enemy York basically stayed, or tried to stay, straight on to me the entire time, which made it a little difficult to get my armor piercing going. And then once, you know, he actually does turn, I get more caught up with trying to limit broadsides than I do with the actual ammo type that I'm using, which I guess is my own fault. But whatever. HE seems to be doing the job just fine. We're going to keep focusing on this enemy York here just to see if we can't get this player gone before the player pushes into B, because we know that's exactly where the player is going. I still have to be incredibly careful though with this enemy York. Those German cruisers, especially once you get into tier 7 and tier 8 and onwards, have amazing guns. I mean, the 5 and 6 have amazing guns as well, but anyway, amazing guns that have a really high chance of citadeling me and killing me very, very easily. Switch over to the old armor piercing. You can see there at the last moment, managed to get the 2 citadels to finish off the York. Fantastic. 3 kills, not too bad. Little out of position right now though, as you can see. I really need to get myself turned back around, maybe push through B, go through that channel, circle in around and get myself back into range so I can start firing it on the enemy. And that's something that I do need to get a lot more used to in this ship here, is the idea that, you know, I do have to stay back as far as I can if I want to live, but managing that and balancing that with, you know, how far do I really want to be back, right? I need to be close enough to support my allies in a meaningful way. It is one thing for a cruiser, you know, to be standing off 10 kilometers from the enemy, for example, firing in and supporting destroyers and other friendly cruisers. You know, one thing for that. But it's a totally other, totally other situation if you're, I don't know, say 22 kilometers away in a battleship sniping and you're sitting there and saying to yourself, no, I'm supporting my allies, you know, this is good. But all of your shots are missing or doing very little damage. I mean, you have much better chance at just a little closer. 10 to 15 kilometers, you know, pretty good. Anyway, enemy Bismarck off on the bow of the ship here. Now we need to be careful with the Bismarck. The Bismarck obviously is a pretty decent battleship at tier 8. There's not a whole lot wrong with her. One thing that she has going for her are the incredible secondary armament on this ship. I believe if you max out, like you get all your secondary armament upgrades on the captain, the modules, and all that lovely stuff for the ship, that the ship will actually fire, their secondaries will actually fire out to 10.3 kilometers, I believe is what it is, somewhere in around there, which is pretty damn nice. And again, in the Chapiev, you know, I do need to take, or not the Chapiev, well, in the Chapiev, but even in the Donskoi here as well, need to take this into consideration. If I get really close to that enemy Bismarck, she will sink me before I have any chance of doing anything, really. There we go. Bismarck is gone. Fantastic. We're on 4 kills now, so that's not too bad at all. We do have some enemies lurking in and around B that we want to try and scare away to make sure that they don't come in here and start capping the zone, because we are essentially at cap parity at this point in time. My team obviously does lead in overall points. We've done, a pretty great job of taking down these enemies, but we do, want, or rather we don't want to take this for granted. You want to continue your strategic maneuvers here to make sure that you see victory through to the end. Grouping up with Orvis, or at least I'm attempting to come back into play here with Orvis. You can see that he's duking it out with an enemy battleship over here. So we're going to try and start getting some shots in on this guy, in on this player here, and see what we can do about supporting Orvis. We do notice a North Carolina way off in the distance, so I'm keeping this player in mind as well, because, a few lucky shots from that North Carolina salvo, and I could be looking at a whole lot less health. Another thing I do want to keep in mind is that, I am coming up close to this enemy battleship up here, the Dunkirk, and I really don't want to have this player just look at me and kill me. Actually, sorry, guys now. Yes, anyway, I don't want the guys now to look at me and kill me like we saw last time in the Donskoi. I wanted to try and be a little sneaky here, or at least, a little angle to my ship to make sure that I'm mitigating as much damage as I possibly can. If we take a look at the minimap though, you can see that I'm coming out of the channel. So I do have to continue in a fairly straight line for a little bit more until I'm going to be able to make that turn to port. Because it's obviously going to be the turn to port that I want to make. Turn to starboard, getting closer into the guys now, that is going to be a bad idea. So it's not something I'm looking to do. I'm looking for the port turn. So here we go, we start making our turn. And it looks as though the guys now does have bigger issues than myself to worry about, right? There are a number of allied ships here, including myself and Orvis, who are all firing down on the enemy battleship. And there she goes. Guys now is gone, so we have the North Carolina left. The enemies only have 3 remaining ships, so this is fantastic. There's one other, there's a destroyer at the very least, and maybe another battleship and battleship or cruiser. Putting shots in on the enemy North Carolina. You can see enemy North Carolina is returning shots back at me. The shots didn't, do a whole lot of damage to me, and I was really just trying to get out as much possible fire here as I possibly can in hopes of setting the player on fire and then start my crazy maneuvers to try and avoid any incoming fire. So we can see the rear turret on the North Carolina did fire, came in, and it didn't look like it did too much damage. I still have a pretty decent chunk of health remaining as well. The one thing I am lacking though is obviously the repair ability there, so any damage I take from now on I'm just going to have to live with and hope that I don't actually get killed. We're slowly crawling up the old damage scale there at about 58,000, but again I think this has a lot to do with my crappy aim and not having demolition expert on the captain as of yet. But a few more battles tonight and we'll have that all taken care of. Continue to put shots in on the North Carolina. You can see the remainder of my allies, myself, the allied battleship we have, and Orvis are all, grouped up together, and we are all focused on this enemy North Carolina, which is fantastic. And this is really what you want to do when you are in a situation where there's only a few of you left on your team. As much as possible, you do want to group up with your teammates and attempt to, mount some sort of offense or defense to throw off the enemy and potentially even turn the tide of the battle. That would be pretty fantastic. The enemy North Carolina is almost dead. There we go. Player burns down. Fantastic. Battle is over and victory is ours. Not too bad at all. And I always like putting up replays where it's more about teamwork than it is about any individual results, right? And that's exactly what we can see with this replay. A pretty decent replay. So I did manage to get 4th overall in the team. You can see Orvis finishes 2nd, which isn't too bad at all. What was it, about 60,000 damage or something like that? Not too bad at all. More importantly though, I did walk away with money, and I am incredibly close to getting the commander trained up for the ship. And with the amount of experience, the 5100 there that I got, I was able to finally unlock the range module for the Donskoi. So now I'll have the extended range. Still saving up credits though to purchase modules for her. Anyway, that is today's video. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to leave any comments you have for me in the video comment section below. Love reading those and responding back to them, and I'd love to know more about your thoughts on captain abilities as well. Hit the old like button if you did like today's video. Hit subscribe if you are not a subscriber. And as always, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.